You're good. You're good.
Camera here.
You're good.
And we're live. Awesome. All right. Episode 48 with the really cool planted background. Yvette Strand of Misty Mountain Phants. And we were literally just talking about the fact that you don't do this kind of stuff very much. So I was very happy that you agreed to come on. And our chat exploded immediately.
Wow.
Um,
I'm looking
um,
and I'm like, but I gotta like clean my glasses like triple time. Wow. Cool. Hello, everyone.
So I put in the little blurb that goes with the thumbnails that
Mhm.
Phantasticus, Europlatus in general, um, are they're one of those like iconic species, right? Shows up on the front of Reptiles magazine, and they're very, all the pictures people can think of these very specific and unique looking lizards. And then
Mhm.
when I was new to this 20 years ago or whatever, you
Mhm.
you saw that, and it's like, oh, I'm sure there's tons of people, and you would think, dart frogs and all these super cool planted things, and those lizards, it in my brain kind of fell into that. And then as I progressed through herpetoculture, that kind of didn't seem to be true. Like they weren't as popular as I thought they would be because they were so cool looking. Like you thought
Mhm.
the two would coincide. And then I
Right.
put in that blurb that I met some folks that are successful with them, and it always seemed like they were really dedicated. That was,
Yeah.
Europlatus was typically the bulk of their collection. They were very focused, and then something like Phantasticus, it became, I don't just keep Europlatus, I keep this very specific thing. And I,
Mhm.
and I met some folks, and they did have a lot of success, but it seemed to be really dedicated folks like that. And then I see
Mhm.
something like your Instagram, and it's very in depth, lots of information, super cool setups, obviously tons of plants in the background. Um, and so it seemed that you kind of fit what I thought a person who would be
Yeah.
successful with that type of thing was. Um, do you see that?
I
do
see
you
exactly that. I am so laser focused on Fantasticus. I've been approached by a lot of people. Would you like to swap for, is it Ubanawi or Pietchmanai? I can't say some of these words, but I'm like, nope, I'm laser focused and that is it. And when I first saw them, I was taking care of them when I was introduced to them and I was in love, and that was that. And I'm just kind of very, you know, dedicated that way. I just made up my mind and I am, that's it. That's me.
so did you or you kind of like the rest of us nerds where you had an arc phase of everything and then narrowed down,
Yes,
or did
I
you
did.
start and jump off there?
I didn't start there. I would say because of my partner, he's heavily into chameleons, and so chameleons were my gateway.
Okay.
So, and then after the chameleons, he brought in some other animals like geckos to try out, and with the caging company, and he brought in Phantasticus, and I was when he was on a business trips, he had to go on long business trips. I would take care of all of them, all the reptiles,
Okay.
and I was in love. And so Fantasticus were part of it, and dart frogs, and just other things, and that was it. I was just, in love, and I just love the way they look, the way they move. I'm very particular and caring, and so I just enjoyed all the little intricacies, and even they're not the easiest to care for. I guess you could say
Right.
they need a very tight parameter of care, temperatures, all that, and stuff we're still learning. But I was just in love, and that was that. That was the chameleons were my gateway, and it brought me to the Fantasticus. And then,
Very cool.
everything in between, but mostly, yeah. Yeah.
So is that one of those things where, and of course you have a humongous connection to the chameleon part of keeping in
Mhm.
herpetoculture. Um, Now, is that something where like I said, that the folks that I have met who are successful do seem to be singularly dedicated, and you do
Right.
hear quite often that their
Mhm.
care uh, can be pretty specific, and
Mhm.
takes some getting used to for folks who are new to that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, Now, is that something where it was more of a translation from chameleon care, or maybe due to your location, or that it kind of
Um,
fell in better for you, or was it still kind of a struggle to narrow that down?
well, I think in my experience, I was introduced to a lot of different chameleons that required a lot of specific care and temperatures, and also with dart frogs. And so we kind of had that environment already set up,
Okay.
and it seemed to really work out. And so I don't know, call it luck, but and then also there weren't a lot of people out there talking about temperatures or anything like that. But I think we even had quadricornis chameleons, and so they're kind of, I think they like cooler temperatures too, but just there was a lot of reptiles that really like the same environment, and so it just made it really easy. And
Okay.
I guess you call it, I don't want to say luck, but just circumstances. I just had to turn my
Sure.
phone off.
That makes
Um,
sense.
but and then just kind of keeping that up, and then also I mean, I can get into it like deeper how things like when it heats up, then all of a sudden that doesn't do too well, and then you have to really keep on it, and then you just learn about, you know,
Right.
all the little specifics that make their environment a lot better. So yeah.
So a are you a tech nerd for environment things? Are you a manual labor, like, obviously trying to keep
Oh,
the parameters tight, and
I'm a
what is your
I'm a
approach?
manual labor. I
Okay.
I hand mist all the phantasticus. It takes a long time, but
Whoa.
of course. And I don't know how many I have because we have a running joke, my husband and I, we don't tell how many we have. Then I don't have to know what he has because I'll say, "Don't you have a lot?" "Well, don't you have a lot?" But, I
Okay.
hand mist. I just everything manual because I want to I set it up that way because I want to be able to see them. I want to be able to control the humidity, whatever I can, but I don't wanna say control freak, but yeah, let's just say control freak. I have to see everything. I have to look. Make sure I see the poop and just everything. So,
Okay.
I don't know. It sounds very simple, but I like to be really hands-on, no tech. I'm not against tech. I think I could probably use it. It'd save me a lot of time, but,
Right.
yeah.
No, I get it. That those species, it's not necessarily required, but it does
Right.
seem that the it seems like the people who do find the most success with those things, that that's their brand of nerd, right? Like
Right.
I
That's
I
true, yeah.
I fall into that boat uh quite a bit, but it's the tech helps in my opinion, with enclosure and
Mhm,
lights and keeping the plants nice and
mhm.
things like that. And to me, it's more of, we can automate and help out and do all this cool stuff with the
Mhm.
environment. But
Right.
then the specific things, it's like, no, I want to mist them so I can see it drink. Like I want to,
Yeah.
it's more specified toward the animal itself as opposed to the environment. And it seems to be
Mhm.
those people that are more successful because it's just a time commitment to have
Right.
eyes on
It
for that
is.
amount of time to see changes.
Yes. And, not to trail off, but just think going on vacation is not a whole lot of vacation time there because there's very few people that
Right.
are willing to come in and take on that brand of care. So, but I don't know. It's worth it. I love it. I love the results. Yeah.
Very cool. So are you a full-on naturalistic setup because they're such a cool cryptic gecko? Are you a, I kind of use fake resin stuff because it's easier to clean? What is
I'm a
your
hybrid, actually. I'm
approach?
in
Okay,
between. So I can tell you about it real quick.
for sure.
Um, Currently, I use the Dragon Strand nursery cages.
I can't imagine why.
You know what? There's I have so many stories on the queue. So, but I use them. I have one artificial plant and some artificial vines, and then I also have a
Okay.
real plant and substrate. So it's a hybrid, a combo, and that way it keeps the humidity in, the cleanliness, um, and I can see a lot of things, and they love it. They still love it, and so it's a good combination for me. It works for me,
Mhm.
and yeah, and I can keep track of a lot of things. So and feeding and I don't know. It just seems so. I'm so simple about it. But I don't know. I just feel this. It just comes really easy. But yeah, I just kind of not. I used to be 100% naturalistic,
Okay.
but it was a lot, and I found just in my experiences with the room I'm in, it was just a little more difficult for me to keep all the parameters where I wanted the temperature and just everything clean all the time. It was yeah. So this is really working out for me. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, doing the half and half and having a live plant in there, are
Mhm.
you pathos and simple things? Are you obviously there's a bunch of greenery around you, but
Oh yeah.
have you gone into the I have a secondary nerd hobby of fancy plants also, or have
Well,
you
you know what? It just trails off. I tell you, I've had like the little Schefflera in there and
Mhm.
some of I mean, those are the simple ones you get. I can't even think off my mind. I've even had orchids, little mini orchids in there. Um, I change them out, I change them out because some last, some don't last.
Sure.
I cannot even think of the top of my it's like at the tip of my tongue. There's so many plants that people do utilize, and I put them in there too. I just and I take care of them, and once they're bad or they kind of look kind of I'll switch them out. But yeah, and then I love plants. It's just like you trail off into something else, and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
every time you go into we like to go to Armstrong or something, and let's go plant section, or even if we
Yep.
have to go to Home Depot, we'll park by the garden area and see if we can find anything unusual. So
I
we're always
literally did
trying
that today.
something out. We always are trying something out, and hence this beautiful setup. There's like I don't know how many different pothos are behind me. So yeah, I love that part too. You learn about so many different things. So
For
plants
sure.
and yeah. Eh,
Very cool.
anyway.
So
Yeah.
my thing with especially
Mhm.
the things like Europlatus and then when you get specifically to Phantasticus is it
Mhm.
does lend itself more toward that the amphibian side of the hobby where they're
Mhm.
small enough that you're not worried about them damaging all of your cool stuff when you try to set it up naturalistic as opposed
Right.
to I'm I'm more of an arc keeper even now, so I have a lot of
Ooh,
very big things, and
yeah.
so I have grand plans of large plants and all these wonderful things, and then any of the animals I would put in there with that will just absolutely destroy them. Just body weight, body type, just the
Right,
natural way that they live, that's not gonna fly. You know what I mean?
right.
Um, so yeah, it does lend itself to letting you get more into it and be more specific because you're not worried about your gecko just obliterating some orchid you spent way too much money on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and to me, the fantastic is the art in the plant itself. It is just I
For
love
sure.
it. Yeah.
Now,
Mhm.
on that end of it, so I don't know. I'm very curious about
Mhm.
Europlatus and then Fantastic in the sense that like aesthetically, I
Mhm.
think it's really cool to keep things that are cryptic or a leaf
Mhm.
tail is in their name. They're literally trying to hide, right? Um, but it's kind of two-sided with things like Europlatus because there are some where the whole point is that you can't ever find your gecko. And
Mhm.
that's a cool game to play every day
Mhm.
until you have a bunch, and then it's kind of annoying. Um, and then the other side is that there are some just individually and aesthetically as you're breeding and things like that that are just way they're beautiful. They look like little aliens, and it's so different. And so, like, how, as someone with more experience in it, and then obviously with a connection to the larger
Mhm.
idea of chameleon keeping, which has that dichotomy as well, how do you approach that? Of are you look do you want to play find the gecko every day? Or are you looking for just this
Um,
beautiful little
I
alien sitting
only
on an orchid?
you know, I like both, and of course, if I don't see it, I always want to see for just the health of the gecko, but I don't mind not
For
seeing
sure.
it because but sometimes I'll just peek in there and I'll see a set of eyes. I'm like, "I see you," you know? And but that's it. That's I don't need to see anything else. But yeah, I do like the fact that they're just kind of hiding and cryptic and just doing their own thing and letting them be what they do. So I would say I'm kind of both, um, but I do love seeing them. Especially the little ones that are just growing, and you see the progress in their tail, and sometimes the colors or the markings will come out. And so yeah, I, I I don't mind what they do as long as I know that they're healthy. Yeah.
Very
But,
cool.
yeah. And sometimes when I want to see them and I can't see them, it's kind of like a chameleon thing where you're looking and you can't find them, but they're right there. You just kind of look
Hmm.
at it and you're like, ah, and then there it is. So that's really fun too.
So, do you find that, I would assume your
Yeah.
half and half approach probably makes that
Mhm.
a little bit easier for you, as opposed to,
Mhm.
you could create a jungle, but then you're going to add so much time to your day, because as you go through
Mhm.
12 jungles, and
Mhm.
now it's health checks, and oh, I knew no
Right.
one was gravid, and when you actually have checks you need to do
Mhm.
for the idea of breeding and health and body condition and so forth, like, it isn't the same as singular or one or two pet keeping, where you could spend that extra time searching your jungle
Right.
and it's okay.
Correct. Yeah. Let's just say, like we were talking about previously, it does take a lot of time, and I do check them, like their eyes and, um, let's see. For some reason, I lost the part of the question. Um,
No,
yeah,
I just,
and
the idea
I
that you split
also
half and half made sense.
yeah, it did. And I also do plan on it in the near future. I'm doing full on bioactive on some of them because it's just beautiful. It just
Very cool.
I do miss that, and, it still looks really good in the enclosures right now, but, come on, full on bioactive, it's just amazing. Yeah, and then right
Yeah,
now
it's
yeah. Just wow. It's a lot of work, a lot of time, but, when I get back there, it's so worth it. It's just yeah. Yeah.
well, and you're also in kind of a unique position as far as your spouse is concerned, and
Mhm,
I'm fortunate in that as well, that my wife is
mhm.
into this also, of,
That's really good.
y- you know,
Yeah.
if you get lost looking for geckos and plants for 2 hours in the back room, your spouse can't really come in to be like, hey, what are you doing? And it's like the same thing you're doing in the other room. That's,
I
it's
know. You know what? Yeah, I was just gonna interject for a second. So many times a day, because we both work from home. "Hey, how's it going? What are you doing?" It's just, like, checking in, but we're both doing the same thing or,
hmm.
you know, with our reptiles or but it's really cool. Anyway, you know how cool it is to have a spouse that kind of is in the same thing. It's just it's unreal. It's pretty good. Yeah.
No, I had that today. I actually am living on the East Coast for work currently, and my family's in the
Mhm.
Midwest. And
Mhm.
I texted my wife, and I was asking her some random question, I don't know, and she was like, "Oh, I'm at the shop going through stuff with the animals," and I was like,
Oh.
"Oh, okay, well, yeah." So yeah, I was doing a rodent order or something, and it was one of those. No, I'm here doing what you're doing, just different. Um, yeah, it was pretty good.
I know. It's so funny. "What are you doing right now?" "Oh, I'm taking care of the fans," or, stuff like that.
So
Same
in the chat, which is just
Mhm. Oh,
continually scrolling,
I know.
Jessica
It's like I can't keep
asked,
up.
how do you prepare your live plants for going into enclosures? Were you a wash the roots and change things kind of person, or what is your approach to
Um,
adding a plant to an enclosure?
let's see. Well, what I
Or do
what I
you just
usually
steal one
do.
from the chameleon stockpile? It's kind of probably a different.
No, but I've had to. We'll buy extra, for we just buy extra in that terms, and then we'll kind of snag some from each other. It happens all the time, but a lot. I'll like I won't wash them from the roots, but I'll water them down, let them sit a little bit outside, a couple days or something. But I also try to make sure they're what's the word? Just kind of no pesticides on the plants, and then I'll
Mhm.
just,
Right.
I'll plant them in there, and they do really good. I mean, yeah, even some of the Home Depot, Lowe's, um, yeah, that's how
Ooh,
it goes.
I do have a question on that.
Yes.
Um, I know a lot of folks who do smaller lizards or lizard
Mhm,
species,
mhm.
will so do you plant the how do I word that? Do you plant the plant in the
Do I
enclosure, or
yeah.
do you leave it potted and place the whole thing in the
Actually,
enclosure?
I repot it in a different pot, a new pot, and I'll put
Okay.
like some good soil in it. And the pot will be a little bit bigger. And so I'll just repot it and I'll put it in there. And
Okay.
there's like a uniform pot and different, sometimes I'll have green on this shelf. But yeah, I repot it and they last longer, add some more stuff sometimes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I do. It's really simple. And, it's so seems simple. Um, yeah.
So that I actually think that that's really funny. That so that is actually so far 22 minutes in. Um is kind of a theme to to what I would think is your approach to keeping. And it's something I've noticed when I talk to other people who keep
Mhm,
species that herpetoculture as a whole has deemed advanced or
mhm,
delicate
mhm.
or what have you. All of the people that I have spoken to who keep species in that regard, they talk a lot. They speak the same way that you speak, in that you keep repeating simple a lot,
Yeah, I
and
know, and it's not
it's
really.
no, no, no. It and
You don't think?
I
Okay.
understand. I think I understand what it is that you're saying, in that what your chosen species needs is pretty specific,
Mhm.
but how you achieve that is simplistic or simple, in that you're not
Right,
trying to make it harder on yourself
right.
to do the things that you need to do to keep this very specific animal. Does that
Yeah, no
kind of make
right,
sense?
that sounds good. Yeah, actually, that sounds really good. It's like not over no, you just keep it to what I found that, you just, okay, let's see here, like, not overthinking it, and
Mhm.
you have your parameters, and you just kind of stick within those parameters, and then it seems simple, like, "Oh, well, I don't know." I know. Tongue-tied, but, yeah, I guess it's simple when you just stick to
Right.
what and don't overthink it, and, 'cause there's some people with reptiles that wanna hold them all the time and, do certain things and that you're like, just let it go. Let it just look at it or just
Right.
keep it don't overcomplicate. I don't know. Just one of those, I don't know.
So I
Okay.
actually, off of that, I did have a question.
Yeah.
Um, so some of your Instagram stuff, and I kind of assume this from reading captions and seeing,
Mhm.
or what you could infer, I guess, from Instagram. So whatever that may be.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so that you actually have the vast majority of your pictures of your animals are not in your hand. You have
Right.
some are, but it
Yeah.
always seems to be um, a caption associated with you were moving something or checking something, or
Yeah.
had to move this baby, or what have you. And then it was
Right.
oh, I took a picture because I was doing this, and
Right.
that's when the animal is in hand. It
Right.
seems like all of the rest of your pictures are animals in an enclosure on a plant or what have you.
Right.
And so is that you're more hands off? I mean, given the
Oh,
species, I kind of assumed, but
Um, let's see. I don't want to overcomplicate this. I guess I'm really confident in handling Phantasticus. So I know that I've gotten comments about like not, well, they're not as much like handling, you shouldn't handle, certain species too much or whatever. And so I don't know. Sometimes I feel I need to put that in there, but I really don't. I just, I don't know. I actually, I handle my animals. But it's like for a health check or if I need to take pictures or,
sure.
anytime I have to hold them all. Yeah. I don't know why I do that. I don't really think I need to do that to give an excuse,
Right.
excuses. But yeah, maybe I should stop doing that.
Well, and
No.
it's one of those things too
I
where,
still feel confident in I don't know why. Anyway, go
but
on.
no, I could see that. So, given your introduction to, or how that came about, I suppose, when you were talking
Mhm,
about, oh, it was chameleons, then we introduced some things, and then I found these, and this is what I like, and so on and so forth,
mhm,
and it progressed.
mhm.
Like that makes sense in the you were already on the introductory level, kind of in that realm of herpetoculture where it's like these are really pretty. Don't ever put your hands on them, right?
Right. I was
And
primed by, the
right.
Chameleon
Well, and
Academy guy here.
but that's one of those things where,
Yeah.
as a general rule, sure, it's never
Mhm,
100%.
mhm,
And there are, and it's more of an approach thing, I suppose. Like
mhm,
you're not going to pick up chameleons. You're not going to pick up Europlatus. You're definitely going to pick up small things like Phantasticus, the
mhm.
way that I pick up my tegus or
Right,
my
right.
Uromastyx or my things that are designed to do that,
Mhm.
as opposed to if you just held your fingers out there and it walked onto you, or you it's a
Yeah,
different approach. It's a more,
right.
by necessity, I for most things it's just a more
Mhm.
delicate way to do things. It's a
Yeah,
little more deliberate, so it's not impossible. It just is
right.
one of those, to what you were saying is, if you're confident in it
Mhm.
and you're not going to like bird fist grab the thing out of the plant, like obviously,
Right.
there's an approach to those things.
Mhm.
But it
Yeah,
it makes sense that it would, coming from how you described the introduction, like, oh yeah, we don't pick those up. If they walk on you, great. Otherwise, like, it's
right.
just really pretty.
Kinda leave them kind of like that, mm, you know, I was just joking, like a celebrity, you can look, but don't touch, that kinda thing, so you just kinda
Fair.
let it be.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, you know, and,
These are my
kinda
tiny
works out
famous
like
lizards.
that. Yeah. So, yeah, anyway, I'm trying to, like maybe I should am I supposed to be looking at some of these questions? There's a lot of them.
It
Or a lot
is
of,
it is a rolling conversation of all kinds of things.
yeah.
I think someone is trying to get your counterpart to go on a Snakes and Stogies episode, and that I think they were making
Oh,
fun of
see do you see
him.
that?
I
Oh,
think
that's
they were
okay, they
making
can make
fun of
fun of him
him
all they want.
because
I got
he
stories about him.
says he tries to help you automate and then is shooed out of the room.
Yeah. Wait, you're typing stuff, I'm not even reading it because 'cause I'm just
Oh, for sure.
concentrating on you,
Absolutely.
you know?
Oh, don't worry. The chat will keep him going. It's okay.
Oh, wow, but, yeah, I mean, Bill here, I've taken his dragon strand or the nursery cages, I've stolen them from him. I need more. I've done so much to this guy. Yeah, but I've learned so much too, and so, yeah, it's amazing. So, I feel very
For sure.
fortunate that way, been able to, pick up so much good information just by listening, helping, and, kinda knowing, it really prepped me for, the journey I'm on with Fantasticus, which I don't see me ending that anytime soon. It's a lot of fun, I just very fulfilling.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think anybody can keep, phantasticus. They just have to, um, kind of really be dedicated to what it takes. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I do wonder with, so from an information perspective
Mhm,
about Europlatus in general and then
mhm,
Phantasticus specifically,
mhm.
um, because we were talking about parameters and things.
Right.
Is that something where, are you digging into reptile books, or are you a, well, iNaturalist says that they're found here, and then I know what the weather's like there, so now I'm going to try and copy that, or and then, so
How am I
how
getting
are
my
you coming
information?
to
Yeah.
what you want your parameters to be, I suppose?
Um, well, in the beginning, since I've had them, been keeping for a long time, there
Right.
wasn't a lot of information out there. And I'm thinking the way we kept them, and I say we, because we're both in this together. Um,
Sure. Sure.
we've, uh, we've looked online, we've talked to, people. And then when we had them, we just kind of, hit or miss, or, tried our own thing. But even now, I will read online. I will, books. I think it's more online right now. There's
Definitely.
some
Yeah.
keepers that are really good. I just kind of, I'm, I'm not super active on the Facebook, but on Instagram, there's just a lot of good stuff, but a lot of it is online, and actually experimenting. So just, but I know some stuff that is kind of unchanging that I do keep, like temperatures, but
Right.
there could be some variables we really don't know. Um, and Yeah. And I don't want to say I don't know everything, but I'm still on that journey of learning
Yeah.
so much, so yeah.
So kind of um on that idea is, so I I think of you and the chameleon side separately,
Mhm.
because the animals you keep
Yeah,
are, well, the animals the two of you keep, to me,
yeah,
are very, very different. And so
they are.
it's easy, I think, um, to separate the two of you as
Mhm,
two different entities as far as
mm,
herpetoculture goes.
mhm,
Um, but I know on the chameleon side that there have been different progressions of, misting at night and foggers and
mhm,
all these different things. And I know, obviously, your spouse talks
mhm.
about that quite a bit. Um, and so, do those things impact you, or are those things where it's like, I could try that, or I could,
Yes,
obviously, if you
obviously,
are a person who does it more manually, it's going to be a little harder
Mhm.
if you're going to have 2 a.m. fogging sessions by
Right,
hand. But
and there's
just the idea, the progression, I guess, of ideas, especially when it comes to humidity and water
right.
availability and things like that.
And that's a good topic you brought up about the humidity, because also the fogging I will be getting into soon. I'm trying to get it all geared up so I'd like to do like overnight fogging on the Fantasticus too.
Very cool.
And but yeah, a lot of what goes on, I will ask questions, and I'll want to try it, to see if that would just make it all that better. And
Hmm.
then yeah, I follow a lot of people too that have some experience and I see their journey on raising Fantasticus, and so I learn a lot from them too and what they do. And I'm going to drop one name right now. His name's
For
Lawrence
sure.
Erickson, and I really like his work in Fantasticus, and I know he's getting out of it because he's um, got other endeavors. But I've really learned a lot from him too, and
Very cool.
he's a really really good information. And yeah, yeah. Anyway,
No, that's
yeah,
a good thing to know.
yeah.
Um, so with, especially, I guess it's not necessarily tied to humidity, but
Mhm.
um, you guys are California side of keeping things.
Mhm.
Um, and given what you keep now, is that something where living where you live helps with humidity, but then maybe hurts with heat sometimes? Or what are your fights given your part of the country as
Um,
for keeping?
okay, so see the past, like right now in Southern California, the weather's drier and it's
Okay.
warmer, and so there's a little more challenges. There's some more challenges with the humidity, in my opinion, with the Fantasticus. So,
Okay.
there's a little bit more humidity working on that. We lived in the East Bay or the Bay Area up in Northern California for about 5 years, and it's a lot moister weather, cooler, and it's perfect. It was just not a
Oh,
lot of issues at all. So I think keeping the humidity is more of a challenge where we're at right now. So, but yeah,
okay.
so there's a difference. There's a difference, definitely. And so we've had to adjust. Yeah.
Very cool.
And
So
I
I
don't
know
like,
that. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, no, no. I know that it same thing, chameleon comparison, but I know that that has
That's okay.
always
That's
been a
totally cool.
no, no, but that's always been a spoken about benefit of the smaller things is if you wanted to
Right.
try things outside, if you wanted to move things or set it up,
Mhm.
have it easier to set your room up how you want. Or if you had, maybe
Mhm.
I just need a window air conditioner for this little room because I have small stuff. Um,
Mhm.
and so is that something where, so are your Fantasticus, you just have your own room for the Fantasticus, or are they
I
a
do.
part of a larger collection area
They
or?
are they are all in the same room, and currently I'm trying to steal our Leachianus and make it a full-on gecko room.
Oh, okay.
We
Very
have a
cool.
Leachianus in the other room, but I have my own dedicated room. We don't have guests
Okay.
over because there's just no room. Reptiles are
Okay.
um, so we have backups with things that could go wrong. Like we've invested in a generator, and also I have a backup
Oh, okay.
one of those air conditioning units that plugs into the wall because the Fantasticus cannot take the heat as well as
Sure.
the other animals we have here. So we've had to work and invest in that to make sure things go because at the level I do, yeah.
Right. Right.
Something I had to really adjust. So
No, that makes
yeah.
sense. So
Yeah.
so you have your own room dedicated to this particular setup.
Mhm.
And now, is
Mhm.
this something where are you going for um, like uniform enclosures? I just have these six in a row. They're all the same thing and set up so you can kind of just duplicate things more easily for yourself? Or is it, oh, I had an
Yeah,
EXO and then a Dragon Strand and a Zoom Ed and a.
right. It used to be like that. Right now, I've streamlined into the Dragon Strand, but then
Okay.
I'm already making room for another rack that it's going to be bioactive. All the
Yeah.
will be its own different. But right now, I'm streamlining, and it works really good. Um, because again, I don't have just like 5 or 6. I've got a lot.
Right. For
Yeah.
sure.
So you know how that is. It looks actually really cool when you walk in and even when you see the plants in, but I like it. It looks good. And it
Very
makes
cool.
things really simplified and that's what I need right now. So
Right.
yeah. I like looking at all the questions. No.
So,
I'm glad you
herpetoculture
were able to
network.
look at all these things because
Oh, yeah.
how does the care for fans compare? I'm just looking yeah. I don't carry. I'm just looking at from the herpetoculture network. I just have Phantasticus. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the other species of care, but they're beautiful. I know that.
You know the answer to that, Justin. Of course, it's similar. They're just bigger and look like moss.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I've seen that they're all so different. I'm amazed. The lineatus have bamboo look, that bamboo
Mhm.
look. Gosh, they're cool. I
Well,
think
no,
if I were
I
to
was the herpetoculture network is Justin, so I was giving him a hard time.
okay, okay. He knows.
Yeah. Um, so with I've kind of always wondered. So I
Yeah.
also have a larger collection, but
Mhm,
it's diversified for me
mhm,
in species type and where they're from
mhm,
and all these different things. And so I've always kind of wondered in a setup such as yours, where you have a singular room where you're trying to maintain parameters
mhm,
and things
mhm,
like that, and then you have or attempting to have a uniformity of enclosures.
mhm.
Um, are you noticing? I don't know how to verbalize that. I guess are you noticing a more uniform behavior types from the animal, like to where you know if everybody comes out when I'm gonna mist. Everybody like, are they
Oh,
kind
okay.
of
I get
reacting
what
in the
you
same
mean.
ways to the stimulus that you provide, given that everything in there is kind of set up? I got a plant and a dragon strand and a setup and a thing, and so most of my
Well,
lizards do X or do
yeah.
Y. Do you
Oh,
notice trends like
no,
that?
I don't notice. Well, every single Fantasticus has their own personality.
Oh,
So
okay.
they every I mean, some have their favorite perch, and it's still, I mean, the cage is different, but they have their favorite perch, or if they see me come, some wants to hang out by the door, like, hey, But every one of them is different. I mean, they're the same in their own individual way. They behave in their own way, but everything is not really uniform. They have their own personalities, and that's my experience. And I think that's kind of cool. And
Very
so I
cool.
don't notice anything different, or, you know, if you're talking about personalities, but they seem to be doing really good.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, it's one of those things where I I see it a lot with dart frog folks and different you have the wall of
Mhm.
enclosures and it's a bunch of
Yeah.
exos, what have you, and or even anything, jeweled chameleons, day gecko, the
Mhm.
little things that fit in
Right.
nice planted boxes. And
Mhm.
I see folks obviously do the conformity for their own sanity and to try and be able to mist and
Yeah,
things like that.
it
And I
helps.
yeah, but I think that would kind of add a layer to it personally, to where if you set up a wall of Dragon Strand nurseries and then had a
Mhm.
wall of Phantasticus and mist and feed and so on and so forth, and they all did the same thing, like that would be kind of boring. Like,
Yeah,
it.
it would be boring. It definitely would. That's why I notice, because I see them, each one of them. They all have their own personalities, and that's a refreshing thing to see. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that would be boring, but it's refreshing to know that this one likes to poop right in the same flippin' spot, or, this one again likes to sit on that perch, or peek through. It's just, yeah. But I'm very glad it's not that way, because that would
right.
be boring. Yeah.
Well, and I would think that it's one of those things where, kind of like I was saying before, that the folks who are successful like yourself do seem to be just more time intensive, I suppose, more dedicated to it, just more hands on. In
Mhm.
that, I think those two things probably make a lot of sense together,
Mhm.
because you are getting that out of it, and
Mhm.
that now. It's
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, that one over there on the left is the annoying one that poops on the stick all the time, and then that
Yeah.
one is, you know, you are you're being rewarded for the time that you're putting
Yeah.
in a different way. Like,
Right.
keeper success and babies and things, and that's
Mhm.
cool. But as the actual
Mhm.
like dopamine hit cool
It's
thing
totally
your brain is
dopamine hit.
getting,
So,
you know.
I I didn't grow up with reptiles, just the cat and dog family, but it's definitely a dopamine hit. So every time I get to work, which is intense, it is like, yeah, it's just a full rush of dopamine, getting it all done, and but getting to see all the different everything. Yeah, I just you all know. You all know.
Right.
Preaching to the choir, just singing to the choir, whatever. But yeah. And so I never grew up with that. And boy, if I did, just so much longer I would have been hooked.
Right.
So yeah, I do love it. Yeah, I love dopamine. That kind. Yeah. Um
So with having trying to do, you
mhm,
know, more of a uniformity for enclosures and things, and then branching out to the
mhm,
bioactive, like you were talking.
mhm, mhm.
Um, are you the same way in that with lights and things of that nature? Is everything kind of the same? Everybody's on timers and so on and so forth, or how do you approach that side of it?
Um, well, if you're just it's all on I don't have timers. I just go in, turn the lights. I have my routine in the morning because I got
Okay.
other things to do. So it's like pretty much 100% hands-on. So let's see what else do
Oh, so you haven't let him automate anything.
nope, nope. I haven't because you know why? I'll tell you why. Sometimes in Southern California, we might have a warm day, and even though I've taken all the precautions and put, the window film on, and that
Hmm.
keeps the heat out, it might get too warm. So I want to go in there and turn the lights out. And sometimes you don't know, and I just like to turn the lights out because the lights are, they'll get warm. It'll warm the room. It's not a
Sure.
tiny room, but it's not a big room. So, I just again, maybe it's just because I'm a little control freak and I like to make sure I'm there to do it. I'm just psh. So, yeah, no automated. I mean, I have all the tools and someone willing to like take me on that journey. No, I just yeah, I'm
That's cool.
distracted by all the writing and so but I think it's the same people, right? They're all having a good conversation.
They are now on to trying to convince each other to get Europlatus, and a book on Europlatus is what we're talking about.
Oh, I have that book. I read it. I have a book of Europlatus. What is it called? Do you know, Bill? Bill Strand. Anyway, yeah, they should get it. Get it. Get it. Fascinating. It's a whole new world.
So,
Yeah.
um, for lighting, um,
Hmm.
I assume you're using full spectrum lighting with the plants. Is
Right.
that what are
Um.
you
Yeah.
are you a UV person? No, only plant lighting, or what do you prefer?
I use UV. I have the Zoom
Okay,
Egg Reptisun, the 5.0, the T8s, and
all of this sounds
yeah.
very familiar.
Yeah, yeah. So I use both. I use the lights and stuff, and I have them on a dual light fixture because I
Okay,
have, the big racks and stuff. So, and then I also, speaking of lighting, I'll definitely test them to make sure they're given what they're supposed to be. And if, I'll change them like every 6 months. So, but
okay.
I'll keep on it. So it's just one of those things you put it in your calendar to check it out and to make
Mhm.
sure because you don't want anybody anything lacking. And
Right.
yeah, so and I learned so much from other people on how they keep and also this guy over here about changing things out, being on top of it. And it's
I thought you
I
might
have
have a
such
connection
a
to being a lighting nerd. I didn't want to assume, but I did kind of assume that there was
but
somebody in your ear about lights probably quite a bit.
yeah, but I'm glad. you know. Um yeah. Yeah, so yes, I do use UVB and the plant light.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, yeah.
Now, is that something where um and I love the smaller cryptic species for this type of thing specifically.
Mhm.
Have you noticed um cryptic basking or UV basking with your guys in the idea of, just kind of letting a tail out, or just, those type of things? Do you see any of that type of
Mm.
behavior where they're seeking that out?
Basking? No, I I haven't noticed any basking.
Okay.
Basking as in basking in the light. Yeah, no, I haven't. I They like to hide under the leaves. I think they're those little bush dweller animals they are.
Hmm.
Or and Bill, he just got back from Madagascar, and they saw him in the wild, which was thought was crying. Um, but yeah, they just get a little bit, and I think yeah. Yeah, long story short, I haven't seen them bask like other
Cool.
reptiles would. So yeah.
Well, and I do wonder some of those things where, and it, like with most things with lighting, it is a trial and error type of deal.
Right,
Um,
right.
like we do keep a lot of understory dweller, leaf litter, hider type of things. And
Mhm.
so it's one of those where a lot of times we're worried that we're not providing enough, right? Because
Mhm.
we're very iguanas and uromastics and big heat seekers that want to just get irradiated. Um, and then that to apply that approach to all of these other things as we come to them, it's like, no, I'm, plant light, UV, hides under the leaves, he's cool. You know, they get enough for what we can provide.
Right.
Um,
Right.
it, it's one of those, like, that's a good thing, but it's something
Mhm.
that, like, in herpetoculture we have to convince ourselves to accept it. You know what I mean? Where
Mhm.
it's like,
Mhm.
no, no, it's cool. Like, I microwaved a Euromastix and he loved it, but these geckos, they're fine. Like, like in
Yeah.
to get yourself to be like, oh yeah, no, that's okay. Like
I
they're good.
re just for an example, I when I had the bioactive, I needed to put a couple more plants in it, and I noticed
Mm,
that the Phantasticus, or that one, because I keep them separately, hiding under the leaves all day because he didn't have his plants, because it was a little bright in there. So obviously I
right.
was on my way to get more foliage, or like bulk it out. But I noticed that kind of behavior, and then once I had yeah, I was just like, wow, I can't believe I caught that. But yeah, once the it was more heavily planted, then they were out just under the
Right.
leaves and stuff, and no longer, chilling on under the leaf litter. So that was something I noticed. So, they'll
Well,
get
and
what
that's
they
one of
want.
those things
And if it's
too
too
that
much, they know.
for
Yeah.
sure. And it
Yeah.
and I talk to a lot of folks. So keeping a lot of the larger stuff is it's one of those things where almost all reptiles are prey species, and it's what is trying to eat them. And if what is trying to eat them doesn't equate very
Mhm.
well for a big
Mhm.
monkey like us, then
Mhm.
it's easier for us to fake
Mhm.
it. Whereas so you're providing more plant cover
Mhm.
and things like that. Clearly that
Mhm.
animal, where it's naturally from, is
Mhm.
probably worried about stuff coming from above to
Mhm.
try and get it. And so it's not
Mhm.
like conceptually that species isn't worried about
Mhm.
the monkey outside looking in to see if they're okay, right? That doesn't
Mhm.
register appropriately for them as far as a threat matrix kind of thing. And so
Mhm.
a lot of people really struggle with that, or that I have found, of, oh, my stuff never comes out, or this, that, and the other. And it's like, oh, well, they like to
Mhm.
hide, and so it's okay. And then you end up never seeing these natural behaviors. And it's like, well, you're thinking of hiding in the wrong way. Like
Mhm.
if your little geckos look up toward the light, which is how their environment is framed for them, and you've created a leaf cover for that, then we're cool. They're not looking out
Mhm.
the monkey
Mhm.
who is checking everything out to make sure it's okay. And it gives you a better interaction
Mhm.
because you've satisfied what that prey species needs to feel safe without
Mhm.
compromising getting to watch them do cool lizard stuff.
Yeah. Or
That makes sense.
yes, it does. Yes, it does. Also, when you have to go in like remove one to go put it back in its enclosure, the mating and stuff like that. And it's like, hey, and it makes
Sure.
the
Yeah,
mad dash under the leaves and stuff. Like,
sure.
get that hand out of there, stranger danger, or, anyway. So yeah.
For sure,
I
for
think it's
sure.
kind of funny sometimes. Anyway, yeah,
On that subject,
yeah.
are you individually keeping and then introducing and separating, or
Yes, I
is
am. Yes, I am.
everybody's alone?
Everybody is alone, and
Okay.
people ask if I do trios. I've long ago in the past, I've done trios, but I like to keep them separately and then introduce and then take them back out. That is um, because I've noticed behaviors where like the one of the phantasticus of the pair will be a little more dominant, or they won't mate
Mhm.
anymore. They kind of get tired, or one will start hanging out lower on a branch, or even just sitting on the hanging out on the ground. And so it's just, yeah, I think time to separate and see what happens, and then you do it and you notice that, oh, it's back on the branch again, and it doesn't, it just likes to chill by itself. So I just took that approach that everybody gets their own space. It's a preference, and I like the results, and
Right.
yeah. So that's how I roll.
Very cool.
I know it seems it's a lot of a little extra room, but it's just worth it to me.
Right.
I talked to some other keepers where they don't have separate. I'm not naming names or anything, but they were just experimenting too, and they noticed one of them was a little aggressive, and so you need to have that extra space to separate. And so
For
I thought
sure.
it was a good idea, and so I just implement that in my care, my keeping. Yeah,
No, I get it.
yeah.
So, for introductions, breeding, and that sort of thing, is
Mhm.
that something where are you doing that seasonally? Are you faking it with with your keep? I can mist heavier to make my own wet season, or are you? How are you approaching
Um,
that?
I I'm using the same approach on the daily. Um, and Fantasticus will my Fantasticus will breed year round.
Oh, very
So,
cool.
but I try not to I don't want to say have them breeding all the time, because I know there are some that'll just keep breeding and breeding, and they kind of need a break.
Hmm.
So I might, you know, not breed them for a few months. I'll give them a break, but um, I'm trying to think of what angle I should go on. I keep them more separated than together, and and they can breed year round. So
Okay.
that's how it works for me. And I don't do anything special with the watering or anything like that, even though it's rainy season over there right now. So
Right.
yeah.
So, is that something? I mean, I would, I would think. I don't know. To
Mhm.
where that kind of lets you plan it a little for yourself as well, because
Mhm.
if you
Right.
breed a bunch right now, here in a
Mhm.
little bit, you're going to have to deal with a bunch of babies. And so,
Right.
are
And
you able to
so
kind
you
of
have to,
stagger that out to deal with your own
yeah.
workload down the line?
Um, yeah, and then also I try to have extra, enclosures to
Sure.
extra stuff to keep everybody in. Let's just see. I haven't really thought of the management. It just seemed to work out. Maybe I should write some article on it or something. I'm kidding. Um, I know that I do notice though that during certain parts of the year they will want to breed more, though the care is the same. They'll
Okay.
um I want to say maybe there's like an internal clock, or how they are. Um let's see, how do I say this? I think they know when they wanna breed, but they do it they can breed year round anyway, so but, and then staggering, I haven't tried the staggering, but it sounds like a good idea. Uh, sometimes I might complain and say, "Oh, these babies, I have so many babies," and, anyway, just it's just part of it. I just have to keep it at a level where I'm not overwhelmed, and
Sure.
that can be different for everybody. So, and again, since I don't know how many I have, I can't exactly tell you. So,
Um,
yeah.
with babies and production and things like that. Are you um what is your approach to that? Is that something where are you going more line specific? Do you I are you planning ahead? You know, I want him and her and him and her and things like
Um,
that, or how do you approach that?
I have a couple approaches. So I plan pairs, but also I also get my hands on some wild caught. And I specifically do that because I want to bring and establish new lines because a lot of people that do keep, they kind of get from everybody else, which
Okay.
in turn they get from everybody else. So I I try my best to bring in the new stuff. And it's, it takes a lot of work and but that is my focus. And so we'll try to pair ones up that I think will be good together, look good. Maybe sometimes you never know what the offspring is going to be, but sometimes it kind
Right.
of works. But that's kind of my approach because of my approach to bring in new blood. So there you go. And I know
Very
people
cool.
do
Very
ask
cool.
for specific, do you have any dark or do you have any lichen? But sometimes I have it, sometimes I don't, but because I have a different focus,
Right.
I just that's what I do. And
Right.
I'm great with that. I enjoy that.
Very cool. So with that um approach to it, or what are you so that's going to add different struggles for you, right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
how are you tackling that? Is it do you have how do you quarantine and things of that nature because you already have a
Mhm.
pretty
I do,
serious established collection, and then
right.
if your
Um,
goal is to add outside blood, that's where all
mhm.
your risk is coming from.
Right, right. So what I
So what
do
is
is, they're all separated. Well, I'll just give you a really quick rundown. I do have quarantine bins for, all the new ones that come in. I create them, I make them, and I
okay?
have, and all the contents within get thrown out, every time I clean it, except I might, sterilize the plant as best I could. It's an artificial. I'll even put a little laying box in the females in case, you get some surprise eggs, which have happened often, which is a
Sure,
bonus. Um, and then I'll keep them in there for maybe a month or so and just care for them. And then I'll put them in cages, or I say cages, enclosures that are designated and they're, sterilized, cleaned out. I will put them all there and so I keep them all in their own little area and
okay,
that's what I do. That's just like the keeping and then, clean your hands, do the other stuff. But and then
sure,
I
sure,
watch them and I make sure everybody looks healthy. And I take a couple months or so to, especially on the size to see if, hey, maybe I could start breeding to see what, you know, and that's my approach. But I keep them, you know, in the temporary and then everything's starting to look, it just looks really good. They're like healthy. Um, and then I'll continue on doing what I do. And if somebody might look a little, like they need some help, I have a great vet that we go to, been going to him for years.
very cool.
And so, but I have some, approaches I take or things I do or won't do because, yeah, that's another topic. I was going to say some stuff, but I'm good. All right. So hopefully
So
I
is
answered your question there.
yeah, for sure. Is that something where are you hoping to how do I phrase that? Are you hoping to pair up um pair up the new blood and then use their offspring, or are you hoping
Yes.
to get a new
Yes.
male for your female and a new female for your male, or
I
how
no, I pair up the new blood, the new and then the new offspring I'll pair up with, you know,
okay,
other continue,
got
but
it.
I keep I keep the wild caught, they're mine. But I like try to, establish the new stuff like that. And so everybody, um, you know,
That's
anyway,
cool.
I was starting to say something and I forgot. But that's what I do. So and then you got new stuff and it's great. And then they get their nice new enclosure, separate and yeah. And it's fun. It
Very cool.
actually is a lot of fun and you never know what you're going to get. You can't exactly say I'd like this because it's like what we got is what you get.
Right.
And sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't, but um that is my other focus. So too. And I
Very cool.
one of the few people willing to take that risk. So
Right.
yeah.
So, do you think that you maybe inherited the willingness to take that risk through marriage? In that that's also a
You know
very
what? I'm
chameleon
gonna
thing
say
of
absolutely because I almost want to say it's part of that entrepreneurial do the new stuff, bring in the new stuff, be kind of like the I want to say the word wrangler or just a some help me here, help me with words. You just
well, and
kind
it,
of like yes, I think I'm influenced, but it's so good. I'm glad, uh look at him. I'm good for words here. He wants to know if I'm influenced by you. Of course I am. And uh-oh.
Hi, everybody. Did you invite me on?
Oh yeah, I invited you on for a
Oh,
second.
okay.
Just for a
Because I don't
second.
want to yeah, we've had a lot of talk about the position of a breeding program in herpetoculture, and we have a lot of discussions, especially with the chameleons, the different species. Well, what should we do? And one of the important things that we find in our breeding projects, like chameleons or anything, is we end up having a lot of different breeders, but the actual pool of bloodlines isn't as diverse as one would think, because all the breeders end up
right,
having parts of the same bloodline,
Mhm.
and which is
right,
okay. We absolutely need all of those breeders working with the captive hatched. But somebody needs to be working on bringing in the wild bloodlines and the new bloodlines. And we talked about that and decided that's what the focus we would like to be, because especially like chameleons, I know what it's like to have your species all of a sudden no longer imported. I mean,
Mhm.
right,
bam, overnight, your breeding project is now limited. And
right.
so, yes, uh, that has happened to me so many times that she has
I've
been
learned from
influenced.
I've been influenced. So when they were really difficult to get the Phantasticus, there was a time where it was
Right.
very CITES, etc. I'm
Yep.
like, I'm jumping on it. And it's a small fortune to do that.
Yeah, that was
And
painful.
For sure.
so I have a little, side biz to take care of that, to support my addiction of Phantasticus. But because okay, goodbye. Yeah, so anyway, yes, highly influenced. I like that focus of bringing in
Yeah.
new blood for that kind of breeding project. It also excites me. I get really so some people aren't as excited because they're focused on something else, like I want the colors but no,
Right.
this is really fun.
And I
Uh oh.
will say that there is a special skill that is required to acclimate wild caught, and it is a definite skill. It's it's not something you're just born with. You have to develop that, and she has done so well with that that it's I'm impressed with what she's been able to pull off. And that is a valuable part of what she brings to the community.
For sure.
So yeah, it's a good thing for her to keep doing.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
Well, no,
sweet.
that's a key part of it, especially with the species that you've chosen, really even the genus itself, that lends it doesn't necessarily lends itself, but is they find themselves in the same boat as things like chameleons, in that
Mhm.
they are pretty specific and they can be somewhat delicate and so on and so forth. And so
Mhm.
the in the framework of herpetoculture, like one person cracks the code, figures it out, and we can breed panther chameleons, whatever species.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
everybody else that was maybe not able to crack the code or didn't quite have the missed everything by hand level of interest,
Mhm.
well, they want to start with the easier babies, right? So they're going to
Right,
go
right.
to this person or these handful of people, and then
Mhm.
because they had the leg up and they had the head start, oh great, well it turns out they're
Mhm.
amazing. I just follow what
Right,
Yvette says and I follow what Bill says, and then all these things
right.
pop out. And the problem was that they started out with that one little bundle from the person who cracked the code, and
Mhm.
then that's all the hard work. And
Right,
so if you don't have a person who's always doing the hard part, you're going to
right,
run out of babies for everybody else to pick up on that are going to
right,
be
right,
quote unquote a little bit easier to start as captive bred
right,
and things like that. And
right.
so it makes perfect sense that if you have the ability, you clearly have the interest level and put in the time
Mhm.
in order to be able to
Mhm.
do that, to fill that role, um, I guess that role, whatever you would call it in
Mhm.
herpetoculture, or that niche, um,
Yeah.
that is a sensible approach to it. Like if
Mhm.
you are good enough as a keeper, dedicated enough as a keeper to acclimate, get wild caughts, breed, and so on and so forth, then it would it would be that much easier for you to just call somebody and be like, I'd love to start with your captive bred geckos. This is all really hard, and I could make it easier on myself if I chose to
Right.
go this route. But then putting in
Yeah,
that
a lot of
putting in that level of work allows you to start with these
Mhm.
higher risk or more
Right.
stressed, and the way that wild caught animals typically are. Um, that allows you to work in that more difficult portion of herpetoculture.
Mhm.
I don't know. That's a very responsible approach. I don't know how better to say that.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
very well thought out
okay. Yeah,
approach to what you're doing. I think that's really cool.
yeah. It kinda I don't know, it kinda feeds a little thing in me where it's actually something I really enjoy doing, like not that I have, like, broken wing syndrome because I don't, but just kind of I like the bringing something in that needs to be, extra care taken, also
Yeah,
filling another need, and I don't know, it just kind of something I don't know. It's something I really do enjoy doing, and, maybe the other wouldn't be boring just to buy all captive, because some people that's what they do. It's not a risk, but I guess maybe I do like the risk, and I like the challenge, it's a
for sure.
challenge, and,
Yes, very,
and, yeah, so keeps things very interesting, so
very cool.
and you learn things too, yeah, you do learn, yeah, so
So in the
and
chat we
yeah,
have let's see,
I just
Dragon Layer says, what are your feeders? What is your feeding like for
oh,
your collection?
okay. My collection, I have crickets. They are I believe they're the banded crickets, and
Okay.
I feed them all. They're all like 2 week size, and it depends on where you get them. and they're not too big, and everybody seems to really enjoy that size. So that is what I feed them with. And then of course the babies are the fruit flies, which I also do myself. I've like taken
Okay.
all the feeders in the house. So I don't breed the crickets, but I breed everything else, like the roaches and blah blah blah. But do
Cool.
the I do feed them crickets. And so yeah, and that's it right now. So no snails, no anything else. Nope.
Okay. And are you using any kind of supplements when you do that?
Yes, right now it's for a while I've been experimenting with the Rapashi calcium with low D, that one.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I've been dusting them every feeding. I feed every other day, like about 5 or 10 crickets, and then I change it out. That's what I do, and I actually feed them. I'm just going to give you a little, yeah. I have like a little. I want to say a 2 ounce deli cup, or I put them in there. I dust them in a big one, and I put them in there, and
Okay.
they love it, and they'll know where to go. And so I found that really good being in the enclosures that they're in. And a lot of times I'll come in at night, turn the little camera light on, or and they're like hanging over the deli cup,
Oh,
snapping the
okay.
crickets. And so it just kind of gives them a visual to know where they're at, because they're smart. Um, and there'll be some on the plants, but yeah, crickets. That's what I do, and every other day. And if they're, um, you know, remove them, refresh them, and that's just like that, just like that.
Okay.
I kind of wish them, but anyway.
Now, is that something where you are just ordering what you need and feeding off as you go? Are you keeping and gut loading, or how
Oh,
are
I've
you
got
treating?
okay. Oh, I'll tell you. I get them. I order all the feeders for everything here, so we'll go. I'm
Okay.
fortunate where I can drive there. It's about like 25-30 minutes away.
Oh,
I'll
cool.
drive there, pick them up, and I gut load them with the bug burger, also with some vegetables and some
Hmm.
fruit. But I keep them in small portions, and like every couple days, I will clean it out, or if there's no food there, of course I'll put more food in there. But I'm really particular and very I'm very clean. So I'll clean that
Okay.
bin all the time. And
Okay.
then and so I've got like extra bins, so I'll dump all the good I'll just keep it clean, and I keep refreshing the food, keep cleaning it, and then I order about once a week, and so I kinda know what we need for the whole family, and that's what I do. And if there's other feeders, I get that. I've been doing a little side project with green banana roaches. I know the chameleons love those.
Hmm.
So I'm really good at those, and also I've kinda dipped into the isopods, and I have some rubber duckies and some pandas right now. So I'm just
Cool.
having fun with that. So you see chameleons to Phants to isopods, it's all over. I'm done. Trying to steal my husband's Leachianus, it's mine.
Yep.
So, yeah, it just kind of like blends in. So that's what I do. That's the feeding part. I gut load.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and I with the Rapashi, the bug burger, I just felt that my crickets will eat it, and it was saving me a lot of time too. And I know that they were getting the nutrients they need. And
Yeah.
of course, there is another dry little mix I put in there, and I don't know the name of it. I didn't get it. Bill did, so I'd tell you if I knew, but I'll put that in there too. But they need moisture.
Right.
Yes, it's all about the feeding the food that feeds your
Yeah.
animals, keeps them good.
For sure. Very
Yeah.
cool.
How do you handle I'm just gonna ask you really quick, how do you handle your feeders? You must have all
Oh,
kinds of feeders,
yeah.
like a whole rack of feeders.
So, so my wife and I
Mhm.
do educational shows with our reptile collection. That's what we do.
Well, that's great.
And so we have a facility in Illinois that it's a storefront that used to be a tanning salon. And
Ah,
so
did that.
yeah,
I'm a Gen Xer.
the
Hello.
the electrical is way overbuilt, and it
Mhm.
is separated out into rooms. And
Mhm.
so as you come into our facility, it's set up just like the zoo. When you walk in, there's enclosures along the wall and so on and so forth.
Right.
And then we have a lizard room and a snake room and these type of things. And we have seating for field trips. The elementary schools around us do walking field trips, and so they'll come in and that whole thing. And then the basement of our facility is anything that needs water because of the weight.
Right.
So
Right.
all of our turtles, several different tortoise species, our crocodilians, things like that. And then we're ridiculous, so we build giant enclosures, and it's absurd.
It's good to be
Um,
ridiculous.
yeah. So, but we also do part of what we do is regular educational things, but we also do help people like get over their fears and things like that.
Oh,
And so
that's really good. I like
we
that.
use a lot of invertebrates for that. It started out with snakes, of course,
Right.
and then
Right.
we use a lot of invertebrates for that. And my middle child, she decided that invertebrates were her thing. She saw mom and dad teach people with reptiles, and she likes teaching, but it's not cool to do what your mom and dad do. And so she wanted to do her own thing. And so she kind of took over all the
Oh, I
invertebrates.
hear that.
And so
Mhm.
she has tarantulas and all sorts of things. But she does our roaches.
Oh my goodness.
And then
Yeah.
most of our frozen feeders, we just order frozen. We do breed
Right.
some of our own rodents. We have raised our own quail in the past. Just kind of a diversity of things. When it comes to invertebrates, I order crickets. Uh, I've
Mhm.
always struggled with maintaining them, and so
Yeah.
I order in gut load, same as yourself.
I
Roaches
have
are
no problem
a little
with the
easier to
crickets,
breed.
but right. I used to breed the black crickets that were easy for me, but I don't feed
Okay,
my ants the black crickets. So we don't do that anymore because they bite, and so that's not cool.
right.
But
Yep.
anyway, so
Yeah.
so your daughter took over the like the
Oh yeah,
roaches and stuff. Right
for
on.
sure.
I took over those too. All of them, the hissers, the dubia. I love it. Oh my goodness.
Well, and so that was the angle as well. Like, so my wife was not a reptile nerd. She was
Yeah.
actually scared of snakes when we started, but she's a
Mhm.
very good teacher. And so
Right.
she's married to me. So just kind of through osmosis, she had to learn about reptiles. And
I get to
so,
tell you that's kind of the same story,
yeah.
you know?
And
But I'm happy.
so
I'm, like, so happy about it.
she teaches probably more reptile shows than I do every year now. But
Mhm.
a big part of her teaching, she's an old school, like barefoot hippie lady. And so she loves using the invertebrates to teach about composting and all those different things and
Oh,
recycling and so on
yeah.
and so forth. And so
It's so good.
um, our feeders get dual use of where they're eating orange peels and stuff for Boy Scouts to teach about composting before they go into the lizard cages. But um, the thing I was going to tell you when you start talking about isopods is not the two that you chose because those cost money, but the
I know. I think I made a like a sale, and I'm like, when a next reptile show, I'm getting these 2 isopods, because they're so cute. It was just all about the cuteness, and and I did it,
well,
and I thought I killed them, but they're totally doing good.
they're actually a really good feeder, not fancy ones.
Yeah, not
But
that.
yeah, not fancy ones.
Yeah, they
But
are.
I've used dwarf whites to feed like really small stuff like baby morning geckos,
Oh,
different things like that, and then the like powder blues and oranges are just like that kind
wow,
of next size up, but not really like fancy.
wow.
Um, they're a good alternative for like little mid-sized feeders that I've found. So that might
Huh.
be an angle for
You know
you
what?
if you
That's
decide to go
yeah.
bioactive.
I'm just getting into it because they're cute, and I also have I love those bins. You make your own little I put them on top of the racks where the lights are, so they
Yep.
stay nice and warm, and so yeah, it's perfect. I'm like, hey, I want isopods. They fit. I can do that too, and so I'm gonna go look into the other ones too.
Oh
That'd be
yeah.
good.
Well, and that
Oh yeah,
the
too many
problem is,
addictions, but oh well.
yep, is it's just like we back in the day, if you were in herpetoculture, like it
Mhm.
was like dirt and heat lamps and like simple stuff. And then there was chameleon nerds that had ficus trees, and dart frog
Mhm.
nerds that had fish tanks full of plants with frogs. And that was crazy because it was too much work. And
Wow.
now herpetoculture is the my plants cost more than my frogs, and then the bugs that eat all my lizard poop cost way more than the lizards. And they're like they've all developed into their own super
I know.
specific niche hobbies to where like there's tables of
Exactly.
isopods at reptile shows. And then some of my
Yeah.
best friends on the lizard side of things have the coolest geckos you've ever seen. And then if you go to their house, the thing that they will show
Mhm.
you is like some obscure African plant in their window because because they
No.
went so far down the rabbit hole of bioactive. They were like, "Oh, and then I found violets or whatever." And and now they're like, "Yeah, here's my wall of
Wow.
lizards and look at this orchid." Like it's a whole different thing.
And you meet a lot of people that are into all those obscure things. Like we have a plant friend,
Oh yeah.
well, it's kinda near that all these, you look at it, it's like really tiny. It's like, $70 for this little thing. I don't even know what it is.
Mhm.
I couldn't even tell you the name. But I'm like, "Wow, that would look in the frog cage." But wow. But, the
Right.
frog wasn't that much. Just it's like the whole setup, the whole environment that you
Yep.
create for it and people but that's just part of it, and that's just the fun of it too. You learn that. I learned that just
For
building
sure.
up the everything, and you learn so much, and it just, like, trails into something else and builds on it. Yeah.
Well, I came from the saltwater hobby originally, and so I was used to that. Like I when I saw how those folks approached setups and keeping and enclosures and things like that made sense to me
Mhm.
because the setup was super expensive. That was just accepted right out of the gate because you wanted to do saltwater. And then a lot of the livestock in saltwater type stuff isn't that expensive. It's the smaller coral and fixtures and invertebrates and these very small
Wow.
component pieces that were expensive. And so when I came back over to this side of things, and a lot of people in herpetoculture seem to be taken by surprise that, oh, dart frogs, and then, oh, plants are cool, and then isopods are cool. And it's like, well, a lot of other hobbies in the pet stream of things, they were already kind of on that trend. Like it was,
Mhm.
if you like regular old fish tanks
Mhm.
from big box pet stores, well, the fish probably aren't all that expensive. But
Right,
then if
right.
you're some kind of super nerd that can keep plants alive in those tanks, you're like the coolest kid at the pet store. Like that's how
I
that's
know.
oh, but that's how that's always been on that side of pets. And then on our side of pets, it's we're just kind of catching up. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's so weird for us. And then all these saltwater guys are like, I've been paying a lot of money for shrimp for years. Like it's not weird to them.
Mhm. Wow, I know, it just you never know, and then when you learn about it, then you learn all the other little nuances of it and all the specifics, and it just yeah. Yeah, my mind is always blown, and I'm like, just if I get into this, then I'm gonna wanna do this because it's
Hmm.
just like you were talking about the different coral, or all the little things that go to that, and then wow, it's just amazing.
So in
Yeah.
the chat,
Mhm.
Justin asked, "How soon do you notice mating occur upon introducing a pair?"
Hmm. Well, okay. Let me tell you. Some males will go right for it. And
Okay.
and then some they're just kind of, they'll just chill out and I just yeah, I just it's different for everyone it's different. And then you also have to look for like aggression. So I will put
Okay.
them together. Give you an example. I'll put them together. Nothing's happening, I'll introduce them. I'll put the female into the male's cage in the enclosure. And then obviously when the lights are on, nothing's going on. So once the lights go out, I'll go check. And sometimes they're going right at it, sometimes they're not. And I think only on one instance did I see a male lunge at a female, like he's not, he's not going down. This is not going down. So I removed.
Oh,
You just, yeah. And then I've also talked to a couple friends where the female was aggressive toward the male. So it's just different. You just have to just kind of go in there and watch to make sure things are cool. And then if they seem to be getting along and you don't see anything, that's okay. Because a lot of the matings I don't watch. I just make sure that there's no aggression. And I'm like, okay, I'll just keep you
okay.
there for a few days or a week. And that's just the approach I take. Um, yeah. And then
Okay.
sometimes there's something that, 30 days later, they'll usually lay eggs about 30 every 30 days, 30 to 45. Then you'll see if it works, or if they lay a dead up, try again.
Okay.
So yeah.
Now, is that something where you put them in, you wait however many days you choose,
Mhm.
um, and that was his shot, and now I'm going to wait 30 days and see if it worked, and then try again, or do you
I'll like,
do?
yeah, I kind of do that. I'll remove them because I just that's what I do. I just will remove them. And then I'll see the female to see if she's growing. Like I'll like either weigh her or check out her middle, her see if she's getting a little rotund. And
Okay.
then I kind of check that way. And then I'm patient about it. And that's what I do. I don't yeah.
Now, is that something that you can notice pretty quickly, or
No, I don't
no?
notice quickly. No. It takes around almost the 30, about the 20 some day mark.
Oh,
I
wow.
I can, because it takes 30 days for them, they do their thing and then they lay their egg, and then it's between like 110 and 120 days between, when they hatch.
Okay.
So they grow when they're growing the egg. And so yeah, that's all I notice, the weight, the size,
Okay.
and yeah. And then also I'll look for the female. If it's getting around that time, she'll probably be hanging out on her little laying box under the leaves, getting ready to rock and roll, lay those eggs.
Now, do
So,
you notice that they do they pretty consistently use the box you provide? Is that
yes,
yeah?
yes. And I have a box or a laying box in every enclosure because some of the females, um, I will, like, I don't see any eggs, I'll just, like I said, I just kind of, I'll let them do their thing. I don't see any eggs in her enclosure, but then I'll go look in her male and her mate's enclosure, and I'll see that she laid the eggs in his little bin. So that's really cute. So
Oh,
kind of keep them all separate like that. So I'm like, okay, well, it worked. Hey, I'll just carefully put those eggs, where they go, and that's that. I don't know. I just not too methodical, but I'll just you know.
so given the with their temperature requirements, and
Mhm,
I would, to me, the normal worry, I guess, is
mhm.
in most of those environments, you're worried about getting to the eggs pretty quickly. You don't want them to desiccate. You don't want, things like that.
Right, right.
But then because you're creating a pretty specific environment where
Mhm,
that is probably a less likely threat, is that one
mm.
of those things where are you are you incubating, or are you just everybody
Oh,
is
okay.
kind of in the same area, and so I'm not
Um,
nearly as worried about hurry up and get out of the egg box because where they're going is probably
right.
pretty similar.
No, well, the approach I took, and it rests on our experience, like in the beginning, was leave them where they're at. And so they stay in the little egg bin. And when they hatch, I've had no problems with the mother taking them down or anything. They'll hatch, I'll see a baby, take it out, put it in a little enclosure, a little cage, and I
Okay.
just leave it right there. And I try to create as close as I can to the wild, the temperature, and they seem to thrive in what I've created. So I've kept it that way. Yeah.
Very
So,
cool.
and the temperatures that I keep, I try to maintain like no higher than 68 in the room. So I'll measure it with the humidity inside the enclosures. And if it gets lower, I get really excited because they do like it a little cooler. Um, and so yeah, I just keep them in there and works for me. Yeah.
That is, it's like the anti-reptile. Like,
Uh-oh.
but no, it's like, oh, it got
No,
cold. Oh, thank God it got cold.
I know.
What? What are you talking about?
I
Like that's
know. Yeah, like right now it's cool over in Southern California where it's like, oh, but I'm like, ooh, those fans are loving it.
very cool.
So
Very cool.
yeah. So anyway, with the egg laying and stuff, I just keep it right there. And then since I look in there all the time, I'll see and I'll kind of make little notes I have a little note on the cage and I'll just
Mhm.
say, hey, she laid them around that. And so I'll just keep my eye open. Um, so around hatch time when that might be. And of course, the cooler it is, they'll probably, bake a little longer and they're bigger when they come out. So if they've got
Right.
time to, so I kind of like it when it's more the 120 or would that be like 4 months? Yeah, about around the 4-month mark. Cause they come out with teeth and running, just kidding. But yeah. So that is my approach. The anti whatever approach you said.
No, that's
Yeah. It's kind of
but
like they thrive that way and it worked for me and
right.
I've tried incubating. It was fine. I don't know. I just wanted to keep it the way it was and I didn't feel I needed to fix anything different or do anything different.
Right. That's very cool. So so like that 110 to 120, is that pretty consistent from what you have experienced, that it's usually everybody's about the same given that the setups are fairly uniform?
Well, um, nope. Sometimes it's a little different. Well, I think actually they mostly run into the 110, 120, or the, a little after 3 month, 3.5 months to 4 months. And some of it have even gone longer where I'm thinking, oh no, maybe it's not a viable egg. But no, then they hatch. And
Okay.
it's not exactly, and it's kind of a nice surprise. Yeah. They're usually kind of consistent, but but sometimes not. And I'm okay. I'm good with that. Yeah. It's kind of whatever. Yeah.
That is cool. That is a very
Mom,
cool
yeah.
thing. Um that's like the most anti-breeder thought process. Like that's very, which is
I'm a
good because
rebel.
it's way lower stress for you.
It is. It is.
Like most most folks on the breeding spectrum of things are like neurotically checking, I have a laser for my incubator temperature, and and you can't do anything about it. It's just an egg
Mhm.
cooking, right? So you are just freaking out the whole time.
Mhm.
um Whereas that approach that you just described, like that's so much less stress on you as the keeper.
Mhm.
um that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then given the fact that you're happy about everything being below 68, that's so different
Yeah.
from what you normally think of for like
I
breeding
know.
reptiles, where it's like it has to be 82. I built a fridge with Kevlar. Like, like people are
Right.
usually
Right.
freaking out.
They also, I mean, in the wild, the temperatures aren't always, well, I don't want to say warmer, but if it goes lower, I'm sure it goes lower where they're from and they do just fine. So,
Sure.
I think my focus is keeping it cooler than warmer, because warmer is
Yeah.
just not good. And I just keep thinking, hey, dart frogs, Phants, they all like the same kind of temperatures
Yeah.
and stuff. So, but yeah, I like that. It just takes a lot of stress off me. And I know there could be another stressful aspect to it, like, whoa, the babies, what if the parent eats it or something like that? I just, I'll risk it. In my experience, I've had I think the incubator went out one time, and I'm like, okay, you can have that problem too. An incubator can just
For sure.
so. But I kind of like it where it's kind of a nice little surprise. I have my little ritual in the morning. I wake up and I have all the enclosures that have eggs, and I'm all marked, and I check, and it's just kind of sometimes you get a really cute surprise. It's really nice.
Well, and it also lends itself to the fact that you are a keeper who I turn the lights on and off. I missed. I check, and so that, whereas if you had a different approach, then maybe you would stress, oh, what if I miss that baby
Right.
and mom gets it? What if?
Mhm.
Whereas, well, no, you're not gonna, because you have that foreknowledge of, no, it's me turning the lights on. It's me doing all of the things. And
Mhm.
so it allows you kind of the freedom to not worry about that.
Right.
That's
It
it's one of
well,
those things where it's more work for you, but
yes.
less stress.
I
And
think the
so it's,
payoff is different. So
yeah,
to me, I think I come out more on top with that kind of a payout by having being more hands-on.
yeah.
So that is, yeah, that's a different approach. And yeah, I prefer it. But
That is very cool.
sometimes I just want to go hang out with the dogs and like,
Well, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
we all have that time. So, but this is what we chose, and this is what
Yeah.
we do.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
That is a very different approach. It is, but it is very fitting to what I was saying at the very start of things, in that
Right.
the folks I have met that have success with that are time intensively dedicated to it, but it's just not stressful. Like I meet a lot of people that have
Yeah.
automated robot wizardry running this insane thing with,
Mhm.
it's awesome,
Mhm.
and yet they're still
Mhm.
super stressed out about what if this thing, and these, these small fluctuations, or this could vary, and so on and so forth, to where it's one
Right.
of those things, that it it seems that the the tech and the automation side of it should be making their lives easier. And I think
Right.
people are conflating the two, with easier being less stress, and that's not necessarily the same thing.
Right.
You,
There's always a payoff, right? On
yeah,
one
you
side
have
or the
a quote unquote more difficult, which is not for you. It's less
other. Mhm.
stressful for you. It just takes more of your time.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you don't stress out about so many of those things, because that, as you're describing all these variables, you're like, yeah, no, it's cool. I just check for babies and it's
Mhm.
all good. Like
Mhm.
you're very
Yeah.
unfazed by it.
Right.
That's
I've made
awesome.
it up my life. I've made it part of my life. So it's a
Yeah.
choice. This guy wants to come say something real quick. I'm inviting him back
Uh-oh.
on.
Right, I'm being invited back on. Uh, her style of taking care of her collection is different than many people's, because those of us who are obsessed with the numbers, the UV index, well, that's something she still measures, but the timers and all of that, it allows us to have larger collections and manage those, but it also puts it puts a barrier. It's like it's an intellectual barrier between us and the animals, and we don't feel them as much. And one thing I noticed about her style, to where she doesn't automate anything, and every night she touches, not literally touches, but She observes every single gecko in her collection. I mean, she'll come out of her room and it's like a soap opera. She'll tell me about, okay, well, this Darcy is doing this, and
A baby.
Midnight Blue is doing this, and Midnight Train just doesn't respect that man, so I'm going to have to get her once she wants to be with. But the thing is, she has a intimate feeling for every single one, and she is able.
He's my big advocate here.
She is able to tell minute differences in the health of everyone. So she knows, she has a feeling for every one's health. And when there's a little bit of a change in temperature, she can tell which ones are affected by that. And, okay, the temperature goes down because somebody is feeling just a little bit different. And since she has that daily connection with them, is able to tell the minute differences in their behavior and is able to change the conditions based on what they need. And so it's a feelings based way that she does it, which is
sometimes I don't have words, I just know.
Of course, through my educational outreach, I've got to explain everything in a way that somebody else can recreate it. So I got to do the numbers, and I got to give the templates and all of that. But I got to tell you, it is just so cool watching her work and seeing how she does it so manually and at a feelings level. And it's really, I really enjoy watching that process. So, all right.
I'm all about the feelings. I am. I just do. So I'll ask him sometimes, how do you explain that? He's good. So
it is. It's two totally different styles. That is, and it. I definitely get that. And it's funny when, so you've had him come on, and I'm sure bunches and bunches of people are used to hearing him talk about chameleons and describe things and that kind of stuff. And I think it's really cool that talking to you puts a lot of framework and reference onto listening to what he talks about. And so it's one of those. So one of the really huge things in the Chameleon Academy podcast that they were talking about was individually keeping babies for different species. And the people that he spoke to, they were all very passionate about it. And the way that they spoke to him about those things, as you listen to it, it seemed to resonate with it. It was a really cool couple of conversations. And it's literally how you were just talking and how you've been talking about individually raising and knowing these things and spending time and these things. And then to have him say, oh, it's this super cool thing. And this is her style. And it's this way. Like, you can see how that percolates through to like, oh, so when you interview people who do super cool stuff that makes you think of how your spouse does super cool stuff, you can see that and you could hear it. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, he's a huge inspiration. I'm just kind of just feel so lucky. I don't know, I just fell into it. And
well, and so, but that's what's funny is it also very obviously goes the other way. Like, in that to hear you describe it is you had a huge exposure to chameleons, kind of found your niche, and then do your thing now. And then to hear him talk about it was like, no, it's this cool thing. She does this feelings thing, and it's way different.
I am so feeling.
It's awesome. It's very cool.
It's like, okay, he wants to come back on, but that's cool. He's funny.
All
I'll
right.
be smacking
So
him down after. No, just kidding.
one reason why this interview is so cool is to listen to her talk. She was not a reptile person before she married me. And so her entire framework of understanding the reptile community is taking care of chameleons. And so when you say, okay, that's an advanced lizard, that's an advanced reptile, and your place, she doesn't know any different. So that is her entire framework as to how you take care of reptiles. And she literally doesn't know any different. So she was just doing great with Phants. That's just what she did. I accused her of always bringing in a new Phant into the world whenever she said, why is there a baby? And so
that's when we got him, like, a gazillion years ago. And then I would, taking care of things, and there's the little babies. Oh my goodness. Just and plus he'd bring in the hard stuff too, like the more difficult species of chameleons to bring in. So I think that just primed me.
But she didn't know any different. That was her world, these exotic species of chameleons, and she just didn't know any different. So it's a lot of fun listening to her actually try to explain her experience.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of those things though, where you get thrown into the deep end like that, but it turns out you're good at it. And so now, all these years later, it's like, oh, well, my niche is that I'm very interested in wild bloodlines and so forth. And well, yeah, your introduction was, hey, this is super difficult, but we're going to try it. And then it turns out you have a skill at it. And so that just allowed you to be like, oh, because a lot of people may not have figured out that they have a skill like yours, because that's kind of a scary thing to like, I know you're new, but we're going to try and acclimate some chameleons. It's like, no, I'm definitely not as a new person. But then to have a person who's like, no, it's cool, we'll do it together, figure this out, what have you. And then it turns out you have a skill for it. So it's like, oh, so this is really hard, but I kind of get it. And now I'll build.
Right.
And to end up here, that's awesome.
Just a little quick backstory, that the catalyst that got it really going fast and kind of threw me into it was he had to go on business trips. He was in tech. So he had to go all over different countries and stuff. And so I had to feed them. I had to handle the feeders. And then, of course, the feeder situation is a whole different story, never handling the jumpy crickets that get all over the place and the super worms that bite, or, so somebody had to do it. And it was okay. So he, primed me but it was definitely a learning thing. And then I just got so good at it. And then again, like I said before, I took over the feeder situation.
Yeah, she started off this way. Every time like a cricket jumped, you
lots of expletives, lots of swearing,
drama every time she would feed anything. And this was years ago. And it's progressed to the point where now she's taken the things that I was breeding away from me because she can do it better.
I can't.
Yeah, well,
it's just
students
me.
become the master, apparently.
I am.
Jeez.
That's silly. So anyway, all right, enough of you.
All right.
So anyway.
Sounds like every married discussion
I just got off track, but that's okay.
No, I'm super used to it, because if you're also married to a reptile person, that it all sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the guy who was into giant lizards, and now my wife has tegus that she puts in her hoodies. So I get it.
Wow.
They take over. I get it.
Wow. I haven't gotten into tegus like that. They look really cool, but I tell you what I do love is I love rats. I used to work at the Renaissance Fair, and it was a rat booth. Totally. I was like, and then
we go to the Ren Fair every year.
Oh my goodness. I used to volunteer. Hello. I met him at sword fighting class. That's where I met Bill. So anywho.
Yeah. Right.
We're like Rennies or whatever. So I worked at the rat booth. And so that's why sometimes it's like, the things that eat little mice or rats, I get a little, because those things are smart. And so I guess, yeah. Anyway, I don't know why I went on the rat thing, but anyway, we did, and I love rats. So there you
Very
go.
cool.
Chickens, rats.
We have the same to where my daughter raises the feeders, and so
Mhm.
we do have some of that where some of the rats cannot be fed until they pass from old age. But
Right.
we have to have, all right, this drawer, they're not pets. This drawer can be pets, but this drawer
Yeah.
cannot, we have to separate.
Oh,
But yeah, I
no, I
definitely
love
get
rats.
that
I
one.
can talk about rats forever.
Yeah. So we are actually closing in on 2 hours. So I don't want to take your entire night.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, well,
so
it's been so much
where can
fun.
it
Oh,
was
where can you
super
reach me
cool.
out?
I'm so glad you decided to come on. I did not realize I quickly realized from our messages, but I did not realize that the selfies and social media thing was not your jam. And so I'm
That's
super glad that you
okay.
came but yeah, so
I'm
especially on
glad I came on
Instagram,
too.
you on Instagram you have a
Oops.
little thing to where you prefer email, not DM. Yes, that's a thing that you prefer.
Yeah, well, inquiries about, you know, I for I they only give you so much space. Inquiries about Phants on my Yvette, Yvette at mistymountainphants.com. That's for inquiries for, animals. Um, through Instagram. And then also I'll just say this, I am starting to semi build up my YouTube. So I do
Very
have a
cool.
YouTube channel and I will be adding more to it and getting braver and another journey to grow into. So that'll be fun.
Awesome.
So I have got my little mentor over here. He's not little, but yeah, that'll be another exciting thing with the Phants because all the information, needs to be shared on all kinds of platforms. And I know I could add a lot to the community and also connect with a lot of people on that platform as well. But yes, Instagram is the main place to message
Okay.
me and or contact or see a lot of pretty pictures and yeah, yeah, that's it.
So, for folks who are listening to this as a podcast episode, as opposed to being live here in the chat, when
Mhm.
I post it and when I do the show notes, I will put that email address in the show notes so people know where to go for that.
Oh,
And
that's
then
perfect.
it is on Instagram, and I'll put the Instagram in there as well. But it's Misty_mountain_Phants. So make sure you put that in there.
Right.
If you're searching on something like Instagram, it shows up pretty quickly.
Mhm.
But just so folks know that the underscores are in there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes,
All
it's
right.
been fun. Well, thank
I
you so
really
much,
appreciate you
Phil, for
coming on.
having me on. It's been a
Yeah,
pleasure. So much fun. Yeah.
very cool. And now you can tell folks that you went on a lizard podcast
I
before.
did. You are actually my first Lizard official podcast. Awesome. I
I,
love it.
I even
Now
got
I'm
the
warmed up.
scoop
No.
to the one that happens in your own house. Awesome.
Yes. Exactly. You got my time more than anybody else.
Very cool.
All right. I'm trying to see all these people over here. Well, thank you everybody for showing up. This is awesome. I don't know if anybody's still typing, but this is cool.
All right. Well, I
All
appreciate
right.
you coming on.
Okay. You take care.
You too. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. That was episode 48. That was awesome. I'm so glad she agreed to come on. Like I said, when we were talking, when I talk to folks on whether or not they would like to come on, some folks don't really do the social media thing all that much. And so this can be kind of an intimidating thing. So it's really cool when people agree to come on, especially given the species that she works with. There are a limited number of people that have success like that, and it's really impressive. And so I wanted to make sure people saw it. I thought that was really cool. As always, wrong side, herpetoculture network. This side, I can never figure out how to move my finger. That side, and then above my head is Black Box Cages. Starting on February 1st, if you guys are looking at snakes and stogies, especially in the chat, if you guys noticed that, or on the network in general, they are doing a raffle and a fundraiser It's going to be really cool. Half the people in our chat are the people that are donating things because they're awesome. So I encourage you guys all to check that out. I will tell you, as the resident lizard nerd on the network, if you are going to be bidding on a Mertens monitor from Mr. Michael Stefani, who comes to my chat all the time, you're probably going to be bidding against me. So bring your checkbook because I love those lizards and I really want one. So just saying. Episode 49 is already set. And then episode 50 for this podcast, I am planning to be with Justin from the network, of course. And then we're hopefully going to hang out and talk to the folks from Black Box. So I'm pretty excited about that. You guys saw on all my social media, I was building some enclosures out of their stuff. And then this year, I think I'm going to go with a stack of 4x2x2 and do some more terrestrial type of things and try to do some different builds for different environments to show a little more of the flexibility of what they provide. I really love their stuff. And then I'll show you guys more of using Zoopoxy. And then I'm probably going to do a couple of more with the Great Foam and dry lock background. So you guys can see some more of that method. And we'll just kind of go from there. So I will see you guys all again in 2 weeks. Later.